Hi everybody, this is Slava Kuryliak at Produvia, and I am super excited for you to join me on this live stream where we talk about how to fight COVID-19 using AI technologies. I am really looking forward to this live stream for three reasons. Number one, I have been dealing with AI technologies for the last 7 years. Number two, I am well versed with COVID, the different use cases that we can talk about on this live stream. And number three, I am excited to share these use cases with you. So what I will do is I want you to envision a world where there is no COVID-19, where we have learned to fight and we have combated and won the battle against COVID. What does that look like? Imagine where people are able to detect diseases before they happen. Imagine a world where disease is slower to spread. Imagine a world where disease is within our grasp. This is possible thanks to AI technologies. This life. I want to bring your attention to the fact that AI technology are very complex, very diverse. And what I'll do on this live stream is I'll do my best to share 5 use cases of how AI technology can be used to fight COVID-19. And as always, I remind everyone who joins this live stream that this is an interactive live stream. If you have a question, feel free to pose a chat, and I am more than happy to address it so that everyone is able to benefit from my answer. Let's get started. What I will do is I'll share with you a screen, and hopefully, and this is how you can better understand how AI can fight COVID-19. Let's get started. You will now see a side-by-side where on one side, on your right, you will see how to fight COVID-19. On your left, you will see my screen, and let's get started. So what are we talking about when we discuss the idea of using AI technology? AI is a very broad term, but we can apply it and we can fight COVID-19. So how does this work? So I want to share with you 5 examples or 5 applications that I think AI technology will do very well. Number one, drug discovery. Drug discovery is one of the best ways to use AI technology today. It is where the most money can be made using AI technology. Imagine what would happen if companies today found the viral vaccine, found the antiviral drug to COVID-19. How much value would that bring to society? How much value would that bring to the individual? This is one of the most pressing questions of our time. How do we fight COVID-19? And it starts with doing the best we can once we do have the COVID-19. So drug discovery is the first use case we will discuss today. The second application of AI is disease diagnosis. Another way to think of this is disease classification or disease discovery. Whatever you want to call this, this is the second use case. And here we're aiming to detect the COVID-19. We're able to find individuals who have COVID-19, and we're able to capture that moment in time and surface the insight back to the individual, back to the healthcare worker, and anyone else involved. The third use case we will discuss today is disease transmission. COVID-19 is spreading, and the question arises, how can we use AI technology to detect the spread of COVID-19? And more importantly, how can this progression or transmission be modeled? And these are the types of questions that companies and individuals can answer today. So the third use case is disease transmission. The next use case is disease modeling. Here we're aiming to solve the question of how can we better understand disease? How can we model it? Or in other words, how can we simulate the disease over time? If we can better simulate the disease, then we can better understand what will happen in real life. And this is the fourth use case of how you would apply AI technology to fight COVID. And the fifth use case is disease control. Disease control is the last way that is showing the most value from companies around the world who are adopting this particular technique. Disease control aims to find and eradicate COVID-19 when it's detected. So not only are we aiming to find COVID, we're also aiming to stop the progression of COVID. And this is the fifth and final use case of how we would fight COVID-19 using AI technologies. Again, I remind everyone who joins this live stream, this is an interactive live stream. If you are joining now, feel free to say hi. Happy to shout out and also answer your specific question. Then let's get started. Drug discovery. Drug discovery is one of the best ways today that companies aim to fight COVID. And here we're really looking for an antiviral solution. Right? We're looking to find some way to detect COVID-19 and some way, more importantly, to be able to get rid of it, right? So individual now has COVID-19. How do we help them, right? Individual may be under a critical condition. They may require to be bed ridden. They may be in a hospital. How do we provide them the most immediate care possible? And the answer to this question is drug and drug injections. These are the fastest way that society can aid in individuals who need help today. And the approach we want to consider when we're thinking about AI technology is drug repurposing or repositioning. So what does this mean? Drug repurposing is the idea that we want to take existing drugs on the market and we want to find which of the existing drugs are most suited to fight COVID, right? We're not looking for a new drug. We're repurposing an existing drug and we're asking ourselves, can this existing drug be used to fight COVID? This is the best way that drug companies today are figuring out a way to fight COVID. Right? If we're aiming to find a drug that already is in the marketplace, now we're able to save ourselves a lot of time and a lot of money, right? If we can find a drug that is in existence, if we can find a drug that already is in mass production, now we've saved ourselves time in development, time in research. We've saved ourselves lots of capital because then we no longer have to inject that capital into clinical studies or other means. So this is the second use case of how we would, this is the first use case of fighting COVID. We use drug discovery, and more specifically, we are repurposing drugs that we know have been effective on other patients, on other diseases. We repurpose them or reposition them for COVID-19. The approach here, why are we able to use AI, is because we want to basically discover the drug, and there are several algorithms that are able to help us on this path, right? The first is being able to use deep learning. Sometimes the models that are very effective at figuring out which drugs are effective are this idea of a generative model, where the model aims to create a new relationship between a specific chemical, a specific effect on the body, and the drug itself, right? Generative models are all the hype, all the rage today, and a lot of companies are pouring millions of dollars to figure out how they can generate new drug potentials using AI technologies. And the other approach I wanted to mention is the idea of using something called graph representation learning. Here, we're really aiming to model the problem, the drug repurposing problem, as a link prediction, right? We're looking for links between the drug and its effects on the body, right? So if we can create, imagine a 3D map, if you were, of different drugs, different chemicals, and their impact on the body, now we have a better understanding which drugs may be effective, right? If we know that there is 100 drugs in production today that are able to solve issues with lungs, well, now we can create a new link, a new graph to see which of these specific drugs are able to help us with a more specific case of pneumonia, which is the idea of COVID-19. So drug discovery is a process where we're aiming to solve really the idea of creating a generative model, creating a graph representation learning model, and the goal is to find existing drugs that are in the market, repurpose them, and put them in production. So the first use case is discovery. This is a very, very promising use case because companies are not overspending time, they're not overspending capital, especially if they have a drug already on the marketplace. And companies that do want to solve this problem, they're using some of these more recent neural networks. They're using more recent approaches like generative models to find different ways that we can find the right drug for this COVID-19 epidemic. The next use case that I wanted to mention is disease diagnosis. Here, companies are aiming to really find the disease and detect it, right? How can society, how can people better detect COVID-19? Well, the answer to that question lies in what technologies are able to help us with detection, right? So imagine we have lots of data about patients coming in into hospitals, into healthcare facilities, and that data is being stored today. And the question arises, what technology, what method, what approach can we use to analyze that data? And the approach here actually is to use an image classification model that has been trained on chest X-ray scans. This is the most promising area of research that we see in the community today. This is where companies are creating solutions using imagery of individuals who get their chest X-ray scans complete. Now, here we have a person who lies down on a machine. This machine takes a photograph of their chest, and now these photographs in time can be analyzed by AI systems, right? And so how does this make sense? So if we think about the fact that at any given moment in time, a CT scan, or rather a CXR for short, X-ray scan rather, this is a scan that's capturing a snapshot of the individual's health. And in order for us to know what is going on over time, is we need subsequent scans, right? We need additional scans, right? That first session may or may not detect COVID, but the second and third sort of CXR may detect COVID. And this is where we have opportunity to leverage AI technology, right? The one element to keep in mind is, why should we take this approach? Well, the benefits are quite vast. There are the approach here is to use more accurate, less expensive testing methodology as compared to more traditional means of using pathological tests or chromatography, or which is short for CT scan. Here we're aiming to use a slightly better technique, slightly more accurate technique of taking a photograph of the person's body, right? CXRs are an amazing a very common technology that is now being used around the world. And the approach to detect COVID-19, to diagnose it, meaning we have clinically created analysis that stated that an individual is carrying COVID-19 disease. Here we're aiming to really find that information, surface it to the individual, surface it to the healthcare patient. And one of the best ways to do that is to look at imagery data, leverage image classification models, and analyze the person with snapshots in time. And the specific algorithm is to use a deep learning method whereby we're leveraging convolutional neural networks, and we're leveraging a architectural approach that is suited to analyze images, right? The question is, how can we leverage the best possible algorithm? And today, while there are many approaches, there are many algorithms to analyze imagery data, such as CXR, we actually have an ability to use convolutional neural networks to find out what is inside the image, right? CNN, for short, are able to scan imagery data, and they're able to highlight on the practitioner's behalf where the COVID may be detected. This is an area where the healthcare practitioner who is scanning or analyzing the chest X-ray scans, they now can spend less time doing so, and more importantly, they can focus on providing sort of a better healthcare sort of outcome for the patient. This is super critical. How can we find the virus? And today we can use neural networks or deep learning models such as convolutional neural network to perform image classification, and we're now able to detect that COVID on a specific image. This brings me to my third use case of using AI technology, which is disease transmission. How can we find the transmission of COVID? How can we prevent that transmission? These are the types of questions that we want to solve. And luckily, AI technology is very well suited to answer this specific question. So this is the third use case here. We're talking about the idea of disease transmission. The goal, ultimately, is for companies and healthcare providers to understand how this disease transmits from one person to the next over time. And there are many ways that this understanding can come about. So I want to share with you a simple approach that I think works very well for using AI technology and being able to fight COVID-19 as the result. The approach here is what is called contact tracing. Contact tracing is the way that companies, organizations, countries around the world are aiming to see who comes in contact with who and how does that transmission occur, right? So imagine that you have been in contact with your family, you have been in contact with your friends, and every single point of transmission is recorded, and every single point of transmission is now a link in this contact tracing use case. So this is the third approach that is really aiming to solve disease transmission. The benefits to this approach is that we're able to reduce the healthcare costs. We're able to save lots of time because now we don't have to go and do manual tracing. Now we can be much more data-driven. We can now use AI technologies to accomplish this. So if we're able to understand who has COVID, who is under quarantine, who is not, we're able to then in a way predict where transmission will happen next, right? If an individual is coming home and they have COVID-19, now they can ask, they're in a position where there's a probability that they can spread that virus onto their family members, and anyone who's tracking the contact tracing of COVID-19 must keep this in mind, right? So within a specific household, you could have transmission, you can have transmission outside of the household, and all this becomes very useful data for organizations to understand, and so they can better use AI technologies to solve disease transmission. The approach here is actually quite simple. We want to use deep learning to fight COVID, and deep learning actually will allow us to model the transmission of the disease, and the transmission really is aiming to find out who has it and who will get it next. So here we can use different algorithms and different methods, one of which is time series forecasting. So I went through 3 use cases so far, and these use cases are, we have the idea of drug discovery, we have the idea of drug or disease diagnosis, and the third being disease transmission. And I want to take a moment here and bring your attention to the fact that I'm sharing with you different use cases of how you would apply AI technologies, machine learning technologies to combat COVID. And these are not the only use cases. There are potentially hundreds, if not thousands, of ways to fight COVID, to be part of the effort to win against this virus. It's going to come cumulatively. It's going to come through thinking. It's going to come through creativity, and all of this is necessary in order to fight COVID. And so I remind everyone that even though I share a few use cases, I am aware that there are many ways to accomplish a similar goal. There are many ways to fight COVID, and I want to bring that to everyone's attention. And also that we are in this fight together. So I encourage everyone to think about what data do they have, what data they can get their hands on in order to participate in this fight. COVID-19 is something that has impacted everyone around the world, and everyone is in a position that they need to respond. They need to respond by being proactive. They need to respond by taking action, by showing initiative. And one way to show that, to respond to COVID, is to use data and to build AI solutions, right? This is one of the best ways that companies today are innovating. This is one of the best ways to be creative, is ask yourself, what data do you have? What data can you get your hands on? And then ask yourself, what do you envision in the future? Because once you have that perfect picture in your mind, perhaps you're looking to create a system that can detect every single COVID in a new patient. Well, now the technology comes in. Now you can ask yourself, okay, great, I have the vision, I have my goal, now I need to make this into reality. And what I can help you with is I can guide you on that path, right? I have been developing AI technologies for the last 7 years, and I and my team have helped companies around the world to apply the latest technologies to solve problems. So if you are interested, if you have data and you want to use that data to join the battle against COVID-19, then feel free to reach out, and I'm more than happy to connect with you. And I want to bring your attention to a blog post that I wrote on the topic of COVID-19. This is a blog post that I had previously published, and I wanted to share this with you because I think you'll find this blog post quite useful. This is a supplementary blog post, meaning that I think you will also find meaningful insights from other ways to think about COVID-19. And what I'll do now is I'll do a screen share, and hopefully you can see what I see. And let's see what else I can discuss here. So the idea with this blog post is, if you're aiming to deal with the impact of COVID-19, if you're aiming to respond to both the societal and economic impacts, then this is the blog post for you to check out. I will link this blog post in the message in the commenting section, so feel free to check that out. I think you'll find it quite useful. And the idea for this specific blog post is that if you're interested to manage COVID-19 in the best way you can, and you're looking for other ideas to explore and to learn more from, then I highly encourage you to check it out. I think this blog post will be quite useful to you. So as a side note, I just wanted to bring that to your attention because, like I've mentioned, there are many ways to join the battle to fight COVID-19, to be part of history and really be proactive. The blog post is something that you can check out on your free time. In the meanwhile, I'll get back and share with you the fourth use case for fighting AI technology for fighting COVID using AI technology. And the fourth use case is, you can see that right now, disease modeling. This is the next best way that I see companies are using to are aiming to solve in order to fight COVID. Disease modeling is really aiming to answer the question, how can we predict the transmission of the disease? How can we do so by modeling or creating scenarios of the disease, right? So imagine we tell a computer, hey, computer, show me the worst case scenario of COVID-19 over the next 12 months. Hey, computer, tell me what is the best case scenario if we're able to control certain parameters. Are we able to create the sort of circumstance where COVID-19 is less impactful? And the approach here is really to focus on what is the contact tracing sort of element, which is how can we see how that transmission occurs, and how can we detect it using methods where we collect data. And really the goal here is to slow the spread and flatten the curve. And this is super, super critical. We want to make sure that the infrastructure, the healthcare system is able to catch up and is able to flatten the curve, that individuals are able to come into healthcare clinics and healthcare clinics are able to respond properly. So how does modeling help, right? How does AI come into modeling? Well, modeling is the first step, right? We're creating scenarios of COVID-19 over time. We're asking ourselves, what is the best case scenario? What is the worst case scenario? And we're changing different parameters so that we're able to achieve what is considered a model. And the approach is really to use a neural network where we're looking at data over time, right? So imagine we have data from patient 0 and we sort of go forward from there. We know where it spread, how many people have it at any given moment in time, because we have detailed records of COVID, which is sort of a collective effort by each country, each region, each city. So this is the opportunity for us to use AI technologies to predict or better understand what will happen with COVID-19, right? If we have data about transmission, if we have data about its impacts, we can now use that data to understand what will happen next. So this is the fourth use case that I wanted to mention, and I think it's quite useful for everyone to familiarize themselves with, which is how do we model the COVID over time. The fifth use case that I think is quite useful is disease control. And here we're aiming to really better understand COVID by being able to control it, right? So we're not aiming to say, hey, how can we detect it? We're aiming to say, we found the COVID, how do we stop it? And this is the final use case that I wanted to mention to you, and I think you'll find it's quite useful. And the goal here is to being able to change different disease policies in response to COVID-19 and see how those policies are sort of affecting the the virus itself, right? So each policy is something that people control. Each policy is something that society is able to put in place using laws, and this is something that affects the disease over time. So I'll give you a few examples here, right? If we're thinking about how do we prevent the spread of COVID, then a policy that we can play around with computationally is the policy of wearing masks, right? If we wear a mask, we're reducing the chance of COVID being airborne from one person to the next. Another policy example is we're aiming to create a sort of a guideline for citizens to more frequently wash their hands, to wear gloves, etc. This is another policy that is actually quite useful to slow the spread and to really put control over COVID. And the approach is then we need to model these policies, and by modeling, we can actually focus on figuring out which parameters are the most sort of optimal for the control of COVID, right? Perhaps we're tweaking one parameter, we're changing the next, and these policies or parameters are essential for us to better understand how we can control COVID. And the benefits are that we're really aiming to create a more data-driven decision-making, and we're aiming to reduce over costs on the policymakers, on the healthcare system, right? If we can give them a tool that allows them to better decide, if we can create scenarios where the policy is altered computationally, and that policy sort of alterations lead to specific output or prediction by an AI system. Now we're able to give the insight to the policymaker and allow them to make decisions on what is the best possible next step. Being able to make better decisions, being able to minimize the cost long term is very, very essential for companies and organizations. And the approach here is that we want to use a series of algorithms that will work best for this ability to put a stop to COVID, right? One approach is to leverage what is sort of a more traditional machine learning approach, which is using gradient descent, and the other is to use a more modern approach where we're aiming to create a reinforcement learning model. And this model is really creating a sandbox, if you were, where different parameters affect the output of COVID, right? Tweaking one policy, changing the next, makes a different outcome in the model itself. So reinforcement learning models are really aiming to figure out what is the optimal policies, what are the optimal set of policies that are driving the best possible outcome. Reinforcement learning is a common algorithm that has been applied from the gaming industry, and now today more and more sort of other domains, included healthcare domain, is now benefiting from this particular technology. Reinforcement learning is at least one particular approach in how we can go about controlling this disease. And so I want to bring this live stream to a conclusion. I want to remind everyone who is joining this live stream, who is able to participate, this is the time to take action. This is the time to be proactive, to leverage every single resource possible, to leverage your capital, to leverage your time, to leverage expertise, and you want to get into the battle ring, and you want to fight COVID head on. You want to be as offensive as possible, because the more defensive you play, the more you risk yourself contracting the COVID, as opposed to the more opportunities you create for yourself and able to create a solution that can be scaled to billions of people, right? If you have an opportunity, if you have a desire, this is the time to act. And I want to also bring your attention to the fact that I am very thankful that you've joined this live stream. And I want to emphasize that if you are working in the healthcare industry, if you are a decision maker or an executive and you want to join this fight, you want to flatten the curve, you want to slow the spread of COVID-19, then I highly encourage you to reach out to me, schedule a brief discovery call. You and I will have a conversation, 15 minutes max, about how we can use AI technology to solve COVID-19 problems, right? We can do this together. We can do this because we have the intention to do what is right, to help humanity, to help people, millions of people who are suffering, to be able to take proactive action. This is the time. So if you are interested, feel free to schedule a discovery call with me. Again, the link is produvia.com/start, and I am more than happy to take your call and see what we can do. Now, I also want to bring your attention to the fact that AI technology is a very, very powerful technology to in what you want first, right? So think about, okay, so perhaps you're in a healthcare setting, and somebody comes to you and they say, hey, we need to deal with COVID-19. Tell me what you envision. Describe to me your ideal sort of moment in time, your ideal scenario. It always starts from that vision. And this live stream is meant to share with you examples of how you would use AI technologies. And I'm more than happy to flush out the use cases with you one-on-one. In the meanwhile, I encourage you to check out the link that I previously shared, where I go into how AI technologies can be used to deal with the impacts of COVID-19. And I am super excited that you've joined this live stream. I want to thank you for being here, and feel free to leave a comment, make a question for me before we jump off the live stream, and I will address it on air. My goal is to do more live streams like this that bring you massive value, that inspire you to take action, inspire you to apply AI technologies and solve very difficult business problems. If we can join together, we can solve COVID-19. This is the time. I thank you for your time, and I look forward to